The humiliation was a physical weight, heavy and suffocating, pressing down on Elena's chest as she stood in the narrow aisle of the aircraft. It was the sort of public shame that made the skin prickle and the ears ring, a high-pitched whine that almost drowned out the ambient hum of the Boeing 777's engines. She was standing in the business-class cabin, a sanctuary of beige leather and soft golden lighting, but she felt like a trespasser in a palace. Directly in front of her, blocking the path to seat 4A, stood a man who looked like he had been manufactured in a factory that specialized in corporate arrogance. He was tall, occupying the space with an entitled sprawl, his navy blue bespoke suit crying out its price tag. His face was a mask of sneering disdain, his eyes scanning Elena from her scuffed sneakers to the messy bun atop her head with a look of utter revulsion. "I think you're lost, sweetheart," the man boomed, his voice projecting so that the entire cabin could hear. He didn't just say it, he performed it. He checked his gold Rolex, sighed theatrically, and looked around at the other passengers for validation. "Economy is back that way. Way back. Past the curtain. Keep walking until the seats get smaller and the smell gets worse." "I have a ticket," Elena said, her voice shaking slightly, despite her best efforts to steel herself. She gripped her phone tighter, the screen displaying her digital boarding pass. "Seat 4A. You're standing in my way. Don't lie to me," the man snapped, stepping closer, invading her personal space. The scent of expensive, overpowering musk cologne wafted off him, choking her. "People dressed like you don't sit in seats like this. Look at you. You look like you just rolled out of a gutter. This is a place for professionals, for people who contribute to the economy, not leech off it. Now, move before I have you thrown off." 2 hours earlier, the day had begun, in a blur of exhaustion. Elena hadn't slept in nearly 48 hours. The finalized code for the merger had been riddled with a last-minute security vulnerability that only she could patch. She had spent the last 2 days staring at a monitor in a dark room, fueled by cold coffee and adrenaline. When the compile finally finished successfully at 4 a.m., she didn't have the energy to shower and change into the power suit her publicist had suggested. She barely had the energy to stand. She had grabbed the nearest comfortable clothes, her lucky vintage charcoal hoodie, soft with age, and her broken-in jeans. Comfort was the only priority. She just needed to get to New York, sign the papers, and sleep for a week. As she dragged her feet through the terminal, she felt invisible. It was a feeling she was used to. Despite her bank account, despite the empire she had built from a laptop in her grandmother's garage, the world still saw a young Hispanic woman in a hoodie and assumed she was nobody. At the gate, she sat quietly in the corner, chewing on a bagel, while the man in the navy suit paced back and forth nearby, barking into his phone about crushing the opposition and hostile takeovers. "I don't care what their valuation is," he had shouted, ignoring the glare of a mother rocking a sleeping baby nearby. "They're amateurs. I'm going to walk in there, throw some change on the table, and buy the whole damn infrastructure for pennies on the dollar. The founder is some kid. They won't know what hit them." Elena had looked up then, a small, tired smile playing on her lips. She recognized the name on his luggage tag, Sterling Vance, the CEO of Vance Capital, the man coming to acquire her company. If only he knew that the kid he was planning to crush was sitting 10 feet away, wiping cream cheese off her lip. She had decided then not to say anything. She would let the boardroom do the talking. But she never expected the confrontation to happen at 30,000 feet. The escalation, back on the plane, the tension had thickened into something solid. Sterling Vance was not backing down. In fact, he was doubling down. He seemed to feed off the attention, interpreting the silence of the cabin as agreement rather than shock. "I am not moving," Elena said, her voice gaining a harder edge. "I paid for this seat. Full price. Now let me pass." "You probably used a stolen credit card." Sterling laughed, a harsh, barking sound. He turned to the woman in 4B, an older lady clutching a glass of champagne who was looking at Elena with undisguised suspicion. "Can you believe this? Security at this airport is a joke. They let anyone wander in here. It lowers the property value of the flight, doesn't it?" The woman in 4B sniffed, adjusting her pearl necklace. "It is rather unsettling," she murmured. "Dear, maybe you should just go to your assigned seat. We don't want a scene." "I am at my assigned seat," Elena insisted, holding up her phone. Sterling slapped her hand away. The phone clattered to the floor, sliding under the seat. "Oops," Sterling smirked, "clumsy. Just like your type. Always dropping things, always messing things up." You're a cleaner, right? Or maybe a nanny. Did you lose the family you're supposed to be watching? Go find them, and coach. Pick it up, Alina whispered, rage finally beginning to simmer beneath the exhaustion. Make me, Sterling challenged, puffing out his chest. I'm doing this airline a favor. I'm protecting the integrity of business class. We pay thousands of dollars not to have to smell poverty. Alina bent down to retrieve her phone, her face burning. As she stood up, she saw several other passengers shaking their heads. Not at Sterling, but at her. They viewed her presence as the disruption, not his aggression. In their eyes, the suit commanded respect, and the hoodie commanded suspicion. The visual bias was so deeply ingrained that facts didn't matter. Is there a problem here? The voice was crisp and professional. Alina exhaled, relief washing over her. A flight attendant had arrived. She was tall, with a tight blonde bun and a uniform that was immaculate. Surely, she would resolve this. She would check the manifest, see Elena's name, and seat her. Yes, Elena said quickly, stepping back. This man is blocking my seat and assaulted me. He knocked my phone out of my hand. The flight attendant, whose name tag read Karen, didn't look at Sterling. She looked straight at Alina, her eyes narrowed, taking in the hoodie, the messy hair, the sneakers, her lip curled slightly. Ma'am, I need to see your boarding pass, Karen said, her tone icy. It's on my phone, Alina said, fumbling to unlock the screen which was now cracked from the fall. But I don't want to hear excuses, Karen interrupted, holding up a hand. I need to see a ticket. If you don't have a ticket for this cabin, you are violating federal aviation regulations. She doesn't belong here. Karen, Sterling interjected smoothly, his voice changing from aggressive to conspiratorial. She's clearly confused, or intoxicated. Look at her eyes. She looks drugged. Karen looked closely at Elena's tired, red-rimmed eyes. Ma'am, have you been drinking? What? No, Alina cried, incredulous. I've been working for 2 days straight. I'm exhausted. I have a ticket. Look, she shoved the cracked phone forward. Karen barely glanced at it. That screen is cracked. I can't scan that. And quite frankly, your behavior is becoming aggressive. You are disturbing our premium passengers. He started it. Alina gestured to Sterling. Sir, is this woman bothering you? Karen asked Sterling with a polite, deferential smile. Immensely, Sterling sighed. I just want to sit down and prepare for my meeting. I have a multi-million-dollar acquisition to close in New York. I don't have time for this. Karen turned back to Alina, her face hardening into stone. Ma'am, I'm going to ask you once to return to your seat in the economy cabin. If you refuse, I will have the pilot call airport security to remove you from the aircraft. We do not tolerate stowaways. I am not a stowaway. Elena's voice cracked. The injustice was overwhelming. The system, the people, the authority, it was all rigged against her because of a piece of cloth. She was alone, truly alone. Sterling chuckled, adjusting his tie. Go on, sweetheart. Walk of shame. Maybe if you save up for a few years, you can buy a ticket next time. Although, I doubt someone like you has the capacity for that kind of finance. He turned his back on her, dismissing her entirely, and pulled out his phone. I need to call my broker. Get the paperwork ready for Nexus Systems. We're going to gut that company by Monday morning. The name hung in the air. Nexus Systems. Alina stopped moving. The trembling in her hands ceased. Her posture straightened, the exhaustion evaporating under a surge of cold, hard clarity. She didn't look like a tired traveler anymore. She looked like a shark entering the water. You're not acquiring Nexus Systems, Alina said. Her voice was no longer pleading. It was flat, commanding, and absolute. It carried a resonance that silenced the row. Sterling turned back around, annoyed. Excuse me, what did you say? I said. Alina stepped forward, and this time, Karen, the flight attendant, instinctively stepped back. You aren't acquiring Nexus, because the deal is off. And who are you to say that? Sterling scoffed, though a flicker of doubt crossed his eyes. The janitor. Alina tapped her cracked screen 3 times. It wasn't the boarding pass she pulled up. It was the admin console for the Nexus Systems corporate server. She held the phone up, right in Sterling's face. I'm Alina Rodriguez, she said, enunciating every syllable. Founder, CEO, and majority shareholder of Nexus Systems, and I just canceled our meeting. Sterling froze. His eyes darted from her face to his phone screen. He saw the logo. He saw the biometric login. He saw the email addressed to him, time-stamped now, with the subject line, "Termination of negotiations." "No," Sterling stammered, the blood draining from his face. "No, that's impossible. Rodriguez is. I was told Rodriguez was a man." Alina raised an eyebrow. "Or just someone who wears a suit. You judged the book by the cover, Mr. Vance. And you just lost the biggest deal of your career because you couldn't see past a hoodie." The silence in the cabin was deafening. The woman in phobie gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Karen, the flight attendant, looked like she might faint. Her clipboard clattered to the floor. Sterling's phone buzzed. He looked down. It was a notification from his legal team. "Nexus just pulled the plug." "What happened?" Ms. Rodriguez. Sterling's voice was suddenly high-pitched, desperate. He reached out a hand, sweating profusely. "Ms. Rodriguez, please, this is a misunderstanding, a joke. I was just having some fun. We can't let personal banter affect $1 billion synergy." "Banter?" Alina asked, her voice calm but cutting like a knife. "You called me a cleaner. You knocked my phone from my hand. You tried to have me thrown off a plane." She turned to Karen. "And you assumed I was a criminal because I look like this. You didn't check the manifest. You checked my clothes." "Ms. Rodriguez, I am so sorry," Karen stammered, trembling. "I was just following, he said. "I will upgrade you immediately to first class. Complimentary champagne, anything you want." "I don't want your champagne," Alina said. "And I don't want to sit near him." "I'll move," Sterling shouted, practically tripping over himself. "I'll go to coach. I'll sit in the cargo hold." "Please, Alina." "Ms. Rodriguez, don't kill the deal. My board will crucify me." "You should have thought about that before you decided to humiliate a stranger for sport," Alina said. She looked at him with pity, not anger. "The deal is dead, Sterling. And I'm going to make sure every tech firm in the valley knows exactly why." She turned to the pilot, who had just emerged from the cockpit to investigate the commotion. "Captain, this man assaulted me and destroyed my property. I'd like to press charges. And I'd prefer if he wasn't on this flight." 5 minutes later, the cabin watched in stunned silence as 2 airport police officers escorted a weeping, pleading Sterling Vance off the plane. He looked smaller now, his expensive suit rumpled, his dignity gone. Alina sat down in seat 4A. She adjusted her hoodie, pulled her knees up, and closed her eyes. "Can I get you anything, Ms. Rodriguez?" Karen asked, her voice shaking, hovering nervously by the aisle. Alina opened one eye. "Just a nap. And maybe treat the next person in a hoodie with a little respect. You never know who they might be." Karen nodded frantically and scurried away. As the plane taxied to the runway, Alina finally smiled. It was going to be a good flight. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to help the channel. Thank you.